I am Mission43, and this is the Dan Nelson Podcast, or something like that. Today we got Tyler Merryman. He is an amazing dude that is tougher than woodpecker lips. In fact, cancer actually had to get chemo to get rid of Tyler. He has brought us some amazing positivity today, so sit back, enjoy, and ride the wave of Tyler Merryman. Welcome to the Mission43 Podcast, a podcast dedicated to discussing the struggles and triumphs of transitioning to life after the military. I'm Dan Nelson. I'm a former Army Special Forces officer who's personally experienced the challenges of transitioning to civilian life. In every episode, we'll be sharing tips, strategies, and real-life stories of veterans and their families who've chosen Idaho for their life after the military. So join us, and let's start the conversation. Welcome, Tyler. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
I've been pretty excited about this. I've gotten to know you over the past couple of years. You were a Leaders Fellow in Cohort 4.
The best cohort, yes.
Allegedly. I think Cohort 1 obviously was one of the best ones. But anyway.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But you have a remarkable story, and I know you spent a long time in the Air Force, but not 20 years. You spent how long?
18 years and 11 months, and it still stings.
18 years and 11 months. So I'm wondering, Did you end up in Leavenworth, or how did that work?
Not quite. I ended up with colon cancer, so they medically retired me, yes. I did fight to stay in. They diagnosed me with colon cancer in February of 12, I think it was, and went through treatment, colectomy, chemotherapy, everything else. And don't get me wrong, I'm pretty salty about the situation that I couldn't hit that magic 20. But they treated me very well through that situation, recovered, went back on full active duty, no restrictions, and then the dreaded medical board came up. Everybody was telling me, oh man, you're not deployable, you've got to go, we can't keep you. And I tried to fight at every chain, letters from generals and everything to try to keep me in, but the decree from the military was like, I'm sorry, you're not deployable, you've got to go.
There's a lot to unpack there. So, first of all, you're one of the most ridiculously positive people that I know.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I mean, really, and you have a reason to be bitter and angry. And then, by the way, the other piece of that is you had colon cancer.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it.
No, so the full-blown big C,
yes.
You went through chemo, everything.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And I'm guessing it looked like fairly dire straits for a while.
It did. And to be fair, that's where a lot of the positivity, I think, comes from. I mean, I was never a brooding, angry person to begin with. But,
jealous.
But the cancer really kind of centered me, focused me. And there came a time early on in the chemotherapy, I remember I was laying in bed in our bedroom watching TV, having a Tyler pity party. It's like, oh my God, my life is over. And I saw a St. Jude's commercial. And these kids in this commercial, they're walking, they're talking, they're smiling, they're having fun. And I thought, holy crap, here I am, a 40-year-old dude in bed having a pity party when these kids, fresh into life, or cancer of some variety, and they're smiling, they're enjoying their life. And I really came to the realization at that point, it's like, man, whether I got 5 minutes or 5 decades left, I'm not going to spend it, sitting here in a bed feeling sorry for myself. So that was a big realization for me. And it's like, dude, stop being shitty, get up, live your life, be the best person you can, the best husband you can, the best friend. And here I am today. And I don't know if I'm really achieving the best, but I'm trying to get as close as I can. Well,
it seems pretty damn positive to me. And I think for people like me, my wrist is really sore this morning, and it's made me kind of sour, So is that really the only time that you can think of one moment that you felt sorry for yourself and then magically pushed on from that to become what you are now? By the way, a cancer survivor.
Yeah, it wasn't that one time. There was a lot of times when it was, just things don't go my way, and you might be stuck in that doldrums and everything else, and you'd brood on it for a while. But I can say that time, and it was the St. Jude's commercial. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely a pivotal moment in my recent life.
That's wild. I wonder how many times I've seen that commercial, how many times people have seen that commercial and it never had that. I wonder how many times you saw that commercial before that moment.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. But that was definitely a low spot, and that was when I decided to, and I'm sure you know who David Goggins is.
Yeah.
I've read both of his books, and it was like, who's going to carry the boat type of situation. I had to get off my butt. Nobody was going to carry my boat but me. And don't get me wrong, my wife, the caregivers at Misty, I mean, they were tremendous. They really saved my life, to be honest with you. But that was the moment that I decided, hey, dude, you need to turn this around. And that was very pivotal. So, and I've tried to carry that with me as long as I can. So if I ever find myself getting down or whatever, I always just try to remind myself, man, I'm so blessed. I'm here so much to be thankful for.
How did the cancer experience, like how long did it last? And then how much did that affect the change in your trajectory? Obviously, it ultimately ended your military career.
Correct. Yes.
That's a big change in itself, but has there been other aspects of that experience that have changed you?
Trying to help people, like, so not to get too deep into physiology or whatever, but
Get deep.
Okay. So it was stage 3A colon cancer. They removed my colon and 33 lymph nodes.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah, it was a little deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a ostomy bag now. So basically it's a bag of poo on the outside of me. So when I've tried to help people that are going through that transition, because even some coworkers and everything, they're like, oh my God, I can't imagine living like that. I would never do that. And it's like, well, you've got a choice of, seeing your kids grow up, loving your wife, being the best person you can, or I'm just going to let cancer take over me and just be, worm food. I opted for that. And it's actually, I've experienced better health getting rid of that diseased colon now than I ever had even before. Yeah, because there was always some kind of intestinal issues going on, which is hence why they did the scope on me. And that's when they found the polyps. And it happened so quick, Dan. Man, seriously, again, it was, I think, February 8th of 2012. And by February 14th, I was in the recovery room, 6th floor of St. Luke's.
Wow.
After having my colon removed. I mean, it went fast.
So you're 40 years old at this point?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you're thinking like you'll just get something checked out. Next thing you know, it's a life-changing experience?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Wow. How did your family deal with that?
My wife is a rock. Oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She really kept me centered and grounded and lifted me up when I was down. My girls were younger at the time. They're 21 and 18 now. And I remember we had a family meal right before I went in for the operation. And it was a good friend of ours died of colon cancer not even 3 months before I was diagnosed. So we had a family meal and like, okay, Daddy's, got this issue and sorry. But yeah, they handled it great. Yeah, really good.
You don't need to be sorry for getting emotional. I think most people, either they have or they haven't. They've been in a situation that has put them in a position to realistically contemplate their mortality.
Oh, yeah.
Or not. And I'm wondering, during that period, if you don't mind sharing, like,
oh, don't.
Did you think you were going to die?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I genuinely did because we lost a close family friend, like I said, and I think it might have been about 6 months before I was diagnosed. Eric Crouch, a friend of mine in the Air Force, he passed away of colon cancer probably like 9 months previous. John Agger from Mountain Home Air Force Base, he passed away due to pancreatic cancer. So I'm seeing all these friends just, dying from cancer. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm so blessed. I've had a great life. If I don't make it, hey, thank you for loving me. Same thing with my girls. And yeah, so, and sorry, but how can I sum that up? Getting cancer, it's so stupid to say, and unless you've been there, you probably wouldn't understand, but it was such a blessing because all the triviality in life, the things that just pollute your mind and overtake your emotions and thoughts and everything, they don't mean crap. They really don't mean anything. Your family, friends, God, that's what really matters. So, it really helps you focus on what's important.
It's funny you say that. I used to describe my military career was deployment and come home, deployment, come home. And every time I'd come home, I went through what I would call as the survivor phase.
Oh.
Where I'd eat what I want and drink what I want. I would have fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because I knew I was going to go back to doing work, and I just kind of felt like both kind of processing what happened and also somewhat thankful to be alive, all these kind of things. It's a weird thing, and now I feel like a total asshole saying I described it as survivor syndrome when I'm sitting next to an actual cancer survivor. But I'm curious, like in that positive mindset that you came out of this experience with, where you get rid of what's trivial in life and focus on what matters, has that lasted? Because now, how many years ago was that? That was 10 years ago?
Yeah, just over 10 years ago. Yeah. Well, and first off, don't feel like what you experienced was trivial, because the area that you operated, there were things trying to kill you all the time. So, I mean, for you to come back and celebrate being back, I don't think that's trivial at all.
No, not the same, I don't think.
Well, I don't know. But did it last? I would love to say that it did. And a real good friend of mine that I the pastor at our church, they've moved on now, but he called it the fellowship of the valley. He said, when you're in that moment, you feel so close to God and your family and friends and everything else. But over time, you get complacent back in your old routine. And I'm not going to lie to you. I've gotten complacent. I'm back in my old routine. Some things, get on my nerve. Left lane drivers, you know who you are.
Yes. Stop watching and listening if you are one of them.
Exactly. So, yes, the really Zen-like moment has faded, but I still try to center myself when I can.
When in that process, so it started in 2012,
Yes,
when
sir.
were you cancer-free?
Well, they don't consider you cancer-free until, now I'm trying to remember.
Is remission the correct term?
Yeah, I believe it's remission. Yeah, but now that I have been 10 years cancer removed, from an insurance standpoint, I'm considered cancer-free.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, so now if I want to, I can get some long-term health care insurance or everything.
You haven't been able to do that the whole time?
No, because, I could if I wanted to pay super exorbitant premiums, but but thankfully I've got, my VA benefits and everything else, but as far as life insurance, no.
Wow. So that's part one to unpack, just that small cancer near-death experience and then the positive growth that you experienced afterwards. But then it leads to you being medically boarded by the military, and after 19 years, minus 1 month of service and having survived cancer, then, you got the boot.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And like I said, I was really salty about it at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I thought, golly, I've given them the 18 years and 11 months. I had an impeccable record, too. Never been in trouble, anything else. And I thought, good gravy.
Yeah.
And here they are cutting me loose. So I was pretty bitter for a while, but then, golly, and again,
What's a Tyler while? Your while of being angry is like 5 minutes, whereas mine is, 41 years.
Yeah, exactly. It probably lasted, 4-6 weeks, really. I don't know. I don't even know if it was that long.
Yeah. Well, for those, too, that may not understand the difference. So, if you're medically retired from the military, your benefits are different. Your retirement pay is different than if you did the full 20.
Correct.
So it's not insignificant. That will follow you forever.
Exactly. Yeah. If I would have been able to hit that magic 20 years, I would have gotten my retirement pay and whatever VA disability pay. Mm-hmm. So getting cut at 18 years and 11 months, I had to choose one or the other. And since VA disability pay was tax-free, it was an obvious choice for me. But having that concurrent, what do they call it? Concurrent pay would have been awesome. But
since that, and your 4 to 6 weeks of feeling bad about it, what year was that?
2014. By the time I went through all my chemo, the med board process, and everything else, it was my retirement ceremony was, I think it was the week of Thanksgiving, 2014. Okay,
so then you probably spent about 48 hours feeling like sorry for yourself again, maybe, or at least somewhat negative, and then what? What did you step into after that?
Well, so my entire military career was aircraft maintenance. I spent my career on the F-15 airframe, both in direct maintenance and actually training. So there's the Republic of Singapore Air Force out at Mountain Home Air Force Base. PKL is a contractor, and I knew a lot of the guys that were working there. I jumped over there. The money was good. The conditions were exactly what I was used to in the military.
Easy button.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what it was. Yes. But, I was so burned out on aircraft maintenance and then surviving cancer as well. The JP8's a carcinogen, hydraulic fluid's a carcinogen. And it's like, man, if I've got a propensity for cancer, do I really want to be rolling this dice working on aircraft where you have junk around you all the time?
I was actually going to ask you that. When you mentioned your family, friends, and connections that had passed away from cancer, were they all in the same line of work?
There was another one that I lost at Lakenheath as well, and yes, they were all. I know a shocking number of aircraft maintenance people that are struggling with cancer or have died from cancer.
I think that's pretty common throughout all the services, honestly. There's some jobs that have a higher propensity for it. I'm not trying to spin conspiracy theories or anything like that, but obviously the stuff you work with, we know, is not healthy for a human body.
Yes, correct. 100%. Yeah. So I spent a little bit of time with PKL, the easy button job. Yeah. And then the welding instructor at the Mountain Home High School, he was retiring and we knew each other. We'd helped each other with some different projects. And he said, man, because my background before the military was I was a journeyman auto body mechanic. So I did paint and auto body and everything else, knew how to weld. So he was trying to basically recruit me for his job, and I thought, wow, that would be awesome, just a 5-minute commute every day.
Oh, yeah.
So he helped me get my certifications and everything that I needed to qualify for the job and went into the application process. With him retiring, it was industrial maintenance and welding was the program. And rightly so, the Mountain Home School District decided, well, you know what, we're going to shift gears and we're going to make it VOAG, vocational agriculture, which has a component of welding in it, but it's horticulture, animal husbandry, and all that, which I have no experience in. So I interviewed for the job. I wasn't selected. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I put all these eggs in this basket of hopefully getting a teaching job.
Yeah.
And ended up finding the teaching job here at the Boise School District at the Dennis Technical Education Center, where I now teach welding. And it's my 8th year there teaching welding.
That is so cool. So when I first met you, it was the same thing. I'm like, who is this Air Force dude that has now become a welding teacher? And the way you talked about welding and teaching kids was remarkable to me. And I know you've come in and helped some of the Challenge Athletes Foundation crew with welding different things too, but it is something that I don't want to say it's an art, but maybe it is, somewhat is, and you're kind of an artist, or am I totally off base?
No. I wouldn't consider myself an artist, but absolutely, there's some people in the field that are just phenomenal welders. And don't get me wrong, I put very sound welds down, but whereas, the artists seek kind of the art aspect, I'm just searching for a functional weld that's going to get the job done. And I hope they're attractive welds. I haven't had any complaints from customers, but just a sound weld for whatever the project needs.
So what are you teaching these kids, like MIG, TIG, acetylene, all of it?
Yes. Yeah, MIG, TIG, stick welding.
Okay.
Well, technically it's GMAW, gas metal arc welding, GTAW, gas tungsten arc welding. But anyhow, we're not going to go down the acronym game. But yeah, MIG, stick, TIG, flux core, oxyacetylene welding, oxyacetylene cutting, plasma cutting, just general fabrication and all that stuff.
What do you get out of that? I mean, as a teacher, we've had some teachers on the podcast. We have a lot of teachers in the Mission43 network. And obviously we have enormous respect for what teachers do in general and how important of a job that is. What do you personally get out of teaching welding to these kids?
Okay. Well, I think we've stumbled on my drug of choice. Okay,
Ooh, perfect.
So here we go.
Is it alcohol?
No.
Damn it. All right.
No, unfortunately.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but so I was selected to teach aircraft maintenance when I was in the Air Force and never even thought about teaching before. And they needed somebody there. I wanted to take some college classes, so I needed a stable schedule. So I started teaching, and then I realized...
Teaching airmen or teaching...
Airmen, yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, direct flight line maintenance, aircraft engine operation, and everything else. So teaching them, I quickly found out that, oh my gosh, this is addictive. And I'll tell you what's addictive about it is when somebody's struggling with a task and all of a sudden it clicks and their face lights up and they have this personal victory. I'm seriously getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. They've got that personal victory and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I helped that happen. And that's what I deal with every day. I love, seriously, I joke around and I even tell some of the parents, I probably shouldn't talk about it being my drug of choice, but I get such a high on these students grasping a concept. Maybe they've been struggling with a weld and all of a sudden it clicks. And that moment where they're just elated, we're high-fiving each other, and yeah, that's why I do it. And the paycheck's all right, I suppose.
That's funny because I always thought like the main reason would be because you have a captive audience to listen to every word you say without having to say anything back, because that's my leadership style, obviously, is I
nice.
Just the own sound of my voice just echoing throughout the room.
Oh, yeah.
You know that.
Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you. Yeah, my wife accuses me of it all the time. Do you ever shut up? Well, sometimes. It's called sleep.
So as far as transition, like what we talk about quite a bit and why Mission 43 exists really is to help people transition from military life to civilian life in the state of their choice. Hopefully it's Idaho.
Yeah.
Now, how did your transition go? I know we're talking about how it went from point A to point B to point C, but did you get a transition? And do you feel like you're a different person now that you're out of the military? Is that an identity that's lost at all, or have you just moved on?
It was interesting, and in preparation for this podcast, I went back and I was re-listening to all those, just kind of figuring out the scope, cadence, everything else, kind of what to expect.
Oh, of our podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Oh.
Tripled our membership now. Good.
They're all amazing, by the way. Everybody watch them.
We paid him.
Yeah. But a lot of the theme is transition out of the military. And I'm going to bash my Air Force brothers and sisters here, and I don't mean any harm, but everybody talks about the chair force. And that especially the last year and a half of going through chemotherapy, and because I was on convalescent leave for 7 months going through chemo.
Kind of civilian military hybrid.
Yes, exactly. So it already seemed like, well, I'm kind of half in my uniform, half out. So my transition was emotionally and mentally very easy. Yeah, and then also the fact that they cut me at 18 years, 11 months, it was like deuces, I'm out of here. So that helped the transition. But yeah, I've had a really easy transition into civilian life. And ever since stumbling across Mission 43, it's even gotten better because that component of the active duty, the camaraderie and everything, I didn't realize how much I missed that until meeting you guys. Seriously. And I literally stumbled into
not me, but Chad and Allison and
Brad.
No,
you, Chad. Well, and it was interesting. Christy Funk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was
first shirt from Mountain Home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and she helped me while I was on convalescent leave. So she helped set up a computer system so I could still sign EPRs and carry on administrative functions. And then she was I can't remember what she was for Mission 43.
She worked for our employment team for a while.
Yeah, employment team, that's right. Thank you. And she said, hey, we're having a coffee event in Mountain Home. And I'm like, what the heck is Mission 43? And I went out and I started meeting the people. And yeah, and then the rest is history. It was like, these people are pretty cool. I like them. Yeah, it's a great organization.
Yeah, I must not have been there for that one. But yeah,
you weren't.
Probably Chad was there.
Yeah.
Well, we're extremely thankful that you did. But how, you're not from Mountain Home originally, right?
No, I was born and raised in Great Falls, Montana.
Okay.
I like to claim Helena. After I graduated Great Falls High, I moved to Helena, and I worked there for 4.5 years before I joined the military.
Beautiful town.
Oh, it is, yeah. And my heart's always in Montana.
Yeah.
We consideed when I retired, we thought about moving back up there, but my girls were embedded in
Podcast is over. I'm just kidding.
No. But the girls were embedded in school. My wife had a great job, great friends. We had the support network that we needed. And talking with a friend of mine, he has a cabin on Canyon Ferry Lake. We go visit every now and again. And I'm like, oh, Jeff, I'd love to come back. I'd love to live here. And he just laughs and he goes, no, Tyler. He says, you remember Montana as a 20-year-old man. He said, now that, well, I'm 51 now. And he says, imagine moving snow for 5 months out of the year. And I'm like, ooh, you know what? In the Snowmageddon that we had a couple of weeks ago kind of reminded me of that. And it's like, you know what? And don't get me wrong. I love Idaho. The only reason I wanted to go back to Montana was just because of the heartstrings and the pull of old memories. But yeah, I think Mountain Home is home now. I never thought it would have been. But
you chose to make Mountain Home your home for even after the military service that took you there, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we thought about moving to Boise when I got this job here. But again, our house was almost paid for, and it's like, golly, do we want to restart in Boise? And every time in Boise, don't get me wrong, I love Boise, but the traffic reminds me why I don't live in Boise. So, yeah.
No, that's fair. I will say, though, the one thing that always draws me to Great Falls is this Lewis and Clark Museum, which is amazing, but that's my own nerd thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of touched on one of your nerd things that I love hearing about on you when you said that you had your house almost paid off.
Yes.
Is you're one of the few people that I've met, and it probably shows you what circles I run in, that actually talks about things like living a life debt-free.
Yes. Oh.
And the way you talk about it, I mean, it's another one. I don't want to say it's another one of your drugs of choice, but you seem quite passionate about it. I was wondering if you'd kind of talk a little bit about how that started for you and your family.
Absolutely. Oh, I'd love to. I'm passionate about finances and just keeping away from debt.
Oh, well, that's good.
Well, yeah. So, golly, that was probably 2009 or 2010 at our church. They talking about, hey, we're going to have a thing called Financial Peace University. And they had a couple of people talking about what it did for them. So my wife and I spoke about it. And she really, and don't get me wrong, so I am a spender. I love toys. I love guns. I love camera equipment. I love tools. Love all that stuff. I would spend every penny if it were only left to my own devices. But my wife is very frugal. She helps ground me. And so I mentioned, I'm like, well, maybe we should do this because I'm thinking maybe I will get some tips and tricks. I don't know why we need to pay to go through this class. So anyhow, we did it. And oh my gosh, never looked back. I haven't had a credit card now since, I don't know if it was 09 or 10. But yeah.
So this is BC, before cancer.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So this wasn't like some enlightened moment.
No.
That, like, okay.
Yeah.
You did this when you were fully still living a person normal life.
Exactly. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. Yep. And thankfully, we weren't heavily buried under school debt or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Just normal consumer debt, car loans, credit cards, everything. Like a normal person. But we cut up the credit cards. And the biggest thing, Dan, I'm telling you, if anybody wants the biggest tool and technique to get control of your finances, it's a budget. Oh, my goodness. And everybody, budget's such a bad word, but if you establish a budget, account for every single penny before the month begins, and you and your spouse or significant other or accountability partner, if you sit down and you say, okay, this is what's important to me, this is what's important to you, these are our goals, and you allocate your funds to that, that's the biggest tool. It's really not rocket scientists.
Well,
yes.
Either way, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think budget is a dirty word. I have no problem making a budget, but when there's a gun sale, for instance, like, is there a way to do it without following the budget?
Well, and so it's interesting. So we have a budget item. We call it blow money. You can blow it on whatever you want. So it used to be where...
They have that in Panama.
Yes, they do. Different kind of blow, though.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. And it's basically kind of my allowance, my wife's allowance. Not that I don't even like the word allowance.
Yeah, she wouldn't like you saying that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but spend it on whatever you like. So I used to, in my sock drawer, I would build up this $50 a month kitty, and then if there's a gun sale or whatever.
Just for an instance.
Yeah, and then when we paid off all of our debt except our house, we upped it to $100. And so that would go in there. So again, you got to be disciplined and everything else. Something which I really struggle with is discipline. But now that our house is paid off and everything else, we've even upped the blow money a little bit more. But it's just a matter of, what are your priorities? What are you trying to get? And I can tell you, my wife and I, we haven't had a financial fight or any grievance here in a decade or more. It's I mean, they call the program Financial Peace, and can't stress the peace enough. It's just so awesome. And then that gives you the opportunity as well. If you know a family in need, you can bless them, or a cause in need, bless them, and just, trying to help others. Because for those that don't know, it's about baby steps. And they talk about baby step 6 is paying off the house, and then baby step 7.
That's a baby step, is the house?
Yeah. Well, it's the 6th one.
That's the 6th one. Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then baby step 7 is building wealth and being extraordinarily generous. And that's the part that I love. Is, if you get great service, you're out there in the holidays, and, people that are working during the holidays, they probably need the money. So being able to leave $100 tip for somebody, or, of a single mom in need that maybe their cars needs tires, go throw some tires on there. And it's just having that flexibility to do that with your finances is just cool.
I mean, you're not a person that I've ever heard, nor not now either. You're not like flexing your financial muscles in the sense that like you're not claiming to be an extremely wealthy person. I mean, you are a school teacher here, right?
Oh yeah.
And you said it's a good paycheck.
Yeah. And for the contract days, it's $180 or 180 days a year. So yeah, for that amount of time, it's a good paycheck. And don't get me wrong. No, I drive a salvage title 2017 Honda Fit, just because it gets good gas mileage. And we're just live very low-key lives. And don't get me wrong, we're not a millionaire. We don't have $1 million in the bank, but we're working towards that goal. We'll see what happens.
But your family is debt-free?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and my daughters, my oldest daughter, we're actually moving her down to Utah this weekend to be with her fiancé.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. My youngest daughter's going to college, and we've told them. My youngest daughter, she just turned 18 in December. She got her first credit card application in the mail the other day.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, Kira, look what we have here. And she's like, ooh, I want it. And I gave her the dad look like, I'll choke you. And she says, I just want to see what it looks like. I've never gotten one before.
I was going to say, like, have your children then, have they, like, taken on this philosophy of debt-free, budgeting, spending conscious type thing?
I think maybe more than most students, but I hope and pray that they have. Yeah, I hope that our example to them will live on through them, because if they can start now at their age, oh my goodness, I mean, I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but if I would have known at 20 what I know now, I mean, oh my gosh, yeah.
How old are you now, Tyler?
51.
You're 51. I see you at all the Mission 43 group runs, the hikes, the wilderness immersion, leaders fellowship, like all these physical events. You're still in really good shape. I see at the workouts sometimes. So, like, what is your secret sauce, man? Like, what is your key? You've been through a lot in your lifetime. Your family's been through a lot more than most people, I think, having survived a really, really serious cancer experience, having your military career ended in a way that was not pleasant. Like, what is your key to happiness?
Wow. Well, not to evangelize, but I'm a Christian. I have a very deep faith in God. I've married my best friend. I've got 2 amazing girls, and an uncle of mine. He was one of the most carefree. Nothing ever bothered him. And I remember I was driving down to Wyoming when I was going, that's another story. I went to Wyoming Technical Institute, and I was getting ready to go, and I was having a problem with my car and everything. And he happened to be at the house, and I'm kind of stressing. It's like, oh my gosh, is the car going to make it? And he's just, why are you worried about it? I'm like, what do you mean, why am I worried about it? I says, what if it breaks down? He goes, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'll probably get it towed and get it fixed. There you go. Why are you worrying about it? And he went on to tell me, he says, yeah, people worry about flying. And he says, why are they worried sitting in the back of the plane? What can they do? They can do nothing. And he said, most of the things that people worry about in their life, they have absolutely zero control over. He said, the only things you need to worry about in life are things that you can actively control. If you can't control it, he says, it's out of your scope. Don't worry about it. And that was one thing that kind of stuck with me as well. It's like, wow, why am I worrying about that? Like, and not to go into crazy town, but I mean, I used to be a person, I would write my senators and congressmen and everybody, and I'm like, what in the holy hell are you doing?
Right.
You know, just eroding our freedoms and everything. And I have completely given up on big G government, Washington, and I'm trying to pour my efforts into my community, because worst case scenario, if the apocalypse happens and everything crashes down, it's going to be my neighbors, my friends, my families that are going to help rebuild and keep us all going. So that's, instead of worrying about all that nonsense and wasting time on self-serving, it's like, yeah, try to invest it in your local community and Mission 43 and everything else. So
I was gonna say, I mean, that's it's super kind of you to include Mission 43 in that, but I would say, like, what advice would you give to somebody that maybe is listening, watching, that is not feeling as positive as you are? And I mean, you've given us some of the keys and some of the experiences that have made you who you are. But for someone that's feeling like they're going through a time that is extremely trying, whether it's a medical issue or losing friends or family members, bad relationships, you know, what advice would you give them?
Wow. I always try to keep in the forefront that everything's temporary, you know. I mean, because I've been a kid. I've had a girlfriend dump me and everything else.
It's the end of the world.
I know it seems like the end of the world,
yeah.
But and I start out my school year talking to my students, and I tell them the same thing, and I tell them my cancer story, and I tell them, and I ask them, I'm like, why am I telling you this? And the students will be, oh, I don't know. Why? It sounds like TMI. You're oversharing. And I always tell them, I said, I'm sharing this because, you know, adversity is temporary. You know, you might think, you know, your girlfriend, boyfriend just dumped you. It's the end of the world. Oh my God, it's over. But it's temporary. You know, things are going to get better. But I mean, if somebody's really stuck in that pit of despair, they can't find hope or whatever else, I would strongly encourage them to reach out to somebody. Reach out to me. I would love to talk and help to get you back on the right path. There's so many organizations out there that are absolutely dedicated to not only veterans, you know, mental health, but just mental health in general. So I would strongly encourage anybody that's in the position where they're like, well, it's just not worth going on. Please, for the love of all things holy, reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to Mission 43, whoever. But overall, I mean, gosh, try to, you know, just think about what do you enjoy? What makes Dan happy? What makes Tyler happy? And when you think about it on those happy times, you know, try to reconnect, recreate them or whatever else. And just know that, hey, you know, adversity is temporary. Depression hopefully is temporary. But don't let it consume you. But I realize that's so easy to say and so hard to do.
Well, I certainly appreciate the reminder to keep perspective, which is not always, you know, it's easier said than done. Yeah, certainly. But Tyler makes Dan happy. So truly, thank you, man, for spending the time and sharing the good word of Tyler, because for those that are thinking like, is this guy just acting? Well, in my experience, he's always like this. And yes, it's sometimes annoying. But no, man, seriously, like it's fantastic to have you within the organization. Consider you a friend, and I hope you know that we're always here for you. I'm always here for you. But thank you for being so open and honest and always willing to share your story, whether it's with your high school students, other Mission 43 members, or a person having a bad day. Thanks, Tyler.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate your time and everything JCAF and Mission 43 does. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for the Mission 43 podcast. We hope you found it informative and helpful. If you have any questions or feedback, please comment below or email podcast@mission43.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date with new episodes. Be proud of your service, not defined by it. See you next time.